right? For example, we have, let's suppose, acetone and water. So we have water plus acetone, right? Now you have to separate them. Now we know that both are volatile. Okay, how can we separate them? It's not that easy. But we know that this acetone, it has low evaporation temperature. Low evaporation temperature, it evaporates easily, and water has high evaporation temperature. So with this fact, we'll arrange the apparatus in this, and this is the mixture I have that has acetone plus water. Now we'll heat this mixture. The moment you heat this mixture, which one has low evaporation temperature? Acetone. So just heat this slowly, right? Don't reach that boiling point of water. Heat it slowly at the boiling point of acetone, and then you will see that from here acetone comes out, not the water, only acetone. Why? Because acetone has a low evaporation temperature. The difference in the evaporation temperature of acetone and water is pretty high. When you heat this, you have to maintain the temperature also. You have to maintain the temperature of evaporation of acetone, and then you will see that evaporation of acetone take place here, and now you put some cold water here. So in this case, the cold water comes in and goes out. The only purpose of cold water is whatever gas, acetone gas comes here, it will cool down, and if it is cooled down, since it is slant, the acetone will be collected here. So it will be pure acetone, and whatever will be left here is water. Thus, with this process, we could actually separate acetone and water, and this method is called distillation. Right? So in any case, the one which has lower evaporation temperature is collected here. Lower evaporation temperature. Please note, you have to make sure the temperature is at control. If you increase the temperature to, let's suppose, 200 degrees Celsius, temperature is higher than the boiling point of water also, both water and acetone both will evaporate here, and then again you will get a mixture here. So you have to maintain the temperature. Temperature is a critical factor. Okay, so this method is used for separating of any component of mixture that has that is miscible liquids, but they have different boiling point or different evaporation temperature. Okay, and these should also evaporate without decomposition. It should happen that you can actually evaporate and get it back to the liquid. Something actually, when you evaporate, it's all gone. Right? You heat it at high temperature, the composition itself is gone. It reacts and forms a different chemical compound. That's a different story altogether. Just understand that this process is used to separate two liquids, miscible liquid. They have different evaporation temperature, and also the fact that these kind of liquids you could actually evaporate, turn into vapors, and then cool down, turn into liquid. Okay, so but if the temperature difference between these are delta T is less than 25 Kelvin or 25 degrees Celsius, if the difference is less than 25 degrees Celsius or 25 degree Kelvin, why I am putting same? Because if you talk about difference, Kelvin or Celsius is all same, because I'm talking about difference, right? So if the difference is less than 25 Kelvin or 25 degrees Celsius, then we use fractional distillation. So that is called fractional distillation. So if delta T is less than 25 K, then we use something called fractional distillation. That is different from distillation. I'll show you. Okay. For example, separating different gas from air, they have almost similar boiling point. Or separating different petroleum product. You must be knowing that the crude petroleum is one, and from there you do fractional distillation and you get petrol, kerosene, and diesel. All these you get from that one single input by fractional distillation. So apparatus of fractional distillation is almost same as this, except that it has one fractionating column. So I'll show you. This is extra fractionating column here. This is fractionating column, the blue one. So you see, this is not there and this is here now. That is the difference. This is fractionating column. This is the extra thing that is added, and this is fitted between the distillation flask and the condenser. So this is condenser, because this condense, and this is distillation flask. Okay. Now what this does actually, this fractionating column, this is a tube which is packed with glass beads. So this has glass beads. Beads, you know, you must have played when you were a kid. This is the glass spherical beads. So sphere has a maximum surface area, so it provides a good surface area. Why? See, it provides a surface area for vapors to cool down and condense rapidly. So with that, it is a repeated distillation. For example, let's suppose here you have something. See, what is distillation? So you have something here, water, let's suppose. You heat this, it converts into vapors in this pipe. Then you again cool back, you again get liquid. Right? So, or you have liquid, then come gas, and then liquid. This is one distillation. So what we are doing here is we are providing this glass beads here, and the glass bead provides more surface. So when the vapors comes in touch with this glass beads and get the surface, it cools down, because the glass beads is a little cooler. It cools down, and again what happens is, again it heats, and again it converts to vapors. So you see what is happening here is, in this case, if you don't have the glass beads, from here to here is one distillation process. But the moment you have more glass beads here, it's a repeated distillation here. It's a repeated distillation. So because of the glass beads, we have repeated distillation. For example, in this case, let's suppose this is let's suppose 10% pure. Okay, so after one distillation you get, let's suppose, 20% pure. The next distillation you try the same thing, again you do the same distillation, you make it, let's suppose, 40%, and then you make it 80% pure, right? So like that the purity increase, every time it doubles up. But in this case, if you use the fractionation distillation, in one shot itself you make it 80% pure, because it is repeated distillation. Correct? In this case, in one step itself you get more pure substance, and this is also typically used if the difference in the temperature is less than 25 K. So here it is like, here we talk about, if you try to understand the whole concept, you should understand the concept of equilibrium also, right? That we will understand this in the higher classes. Let me explain this. See, when you do a distillation, you don't get 100% pure, right? For example, it was 10% pure, you get 20% here. So that way you try to purify. But let's suppose this case, this is the 10% pure substance, and you're doing first time only. So here, at this point, at this stage, what you get here is what you get here, if you don't have the beads. So here you have, let's suppose, 20% pure. And if you don't have beads, this 20% pure substance will actually flow and it will come here. But if you put the beads here, at 20% pure itself, it will get the surface area, it will cool down, and again it will boil. So again it will boil, again it will get convert to vapors, right? So at this top, it is actually you are converting the whole thing into liquid, and again you are heating it up. So from that, again, the moment you try to vaporize it, so you get at this point, let's suppose, 40% pure. Again this 40% pure vapors again touch this some beads here, it cools down, and again it vaporize. So that becomes 80% pure. So with that, what you get here is 80% pure in one shot. Understanding? See, what you are doing here is nothing but, see, if you want to make it 100% pure, you in first only get 20%. The same thing you do, the same process you do once again, you get 40%, 80%. So in this case, what I'm saying is, here you already have 20% pure. So instead of collecting it here and again doing it, you put a bead here. The moment you put a bead here, whatever liquid you're collecting here, this liquid gets collected here. And since it is already hot, the same process continues. The same liquid actually try to vaporize. The moment you vaporize this liquid, only the pure form will go up, the impure will come down. The the next water vapor you get here, the vapor you get is 80%, 40% pure. Again, from the 40% pure, when it touches the bed, these beads provide surface area to cool down as good as collecting the whole liquid, and then again vaporize. Oxygen is almost 21.9% by volume. Nitrogen is almost 78.1% by volume. Argon is 0.9% by volume, and another is only 0.1%. These are by volume. And we have to separate them. To separate this, we know that we need some physical property. So let's see the boiling point. Nitrogen, the boiling point is 77 Kelvin. Argon is 87 Kelvin, almost. Oxygen is almost 90 Kelvin. And carbon dioxide, other will ignore. Let's try to focus on oxygen and nitrogen itself. So if you see, there is a difference in the point of almost 13 Kelvin. And the 13 Kelvin is actually less than 25 Kelvin. So we have to use some fractional distillation here, right? So, but we know that at least there is a difference in the boiling point, and we know that air is nothing but homogeneous mixture. Okay. Homogeneous mixture is a colloidal actually of oxygen, nitrogen, argon, and other gas. And these have different boiling point, so we can actually, and the difference in the boiling point is less than 13 degrees Celsius in this case, so we can actually separate them by fractional distillation. Okay, so what we can do here is we can actually take air, will compress it by applying pressure, and also cool down. When you cool it and when you compress it, you get liquid air. Correct? To liquefy something, either you increase the pressure or decrease temperature. Here we are doing both. Once we get this, what we do is we warm slowly in the fractional distillation. And with this, when you warm slowly, the gas separates out at different height because they have different boiling point. So if you see, nitrogen has a minimum boiling point, 77 Kelvin. It will evaporate first. Okay, and it will be, for example, if you see here, this is air under high pressure and cool temperature. What we are doing is we are getting a liquid air, right? This is the normal air. We are putting, it is the normal air. We are putting a filter also to make sure that all the particles are, suspended particles are gone. And then under high pressure and under cold condition, we are making it almost liquid. Okay. Now once we have the liquid here, now we have liquid here. Now we slowly start warming here. So if you see here, this side is more hot, this side is cold. This area is 77 Kelvin temperature, this is 90 Kelvin temperature. Don't increase temperature very high, but this is this range. So now the moment here the liquid air comes out, right, through an expansion jet, because it's all liquid here. Till this part we have all liquid. Now the liquid air comes out and we reach this temperature of 77 K. What will happen? The moment you have 77 K, the gas will come out. And which gas will come out? Nitrogen gas will come out. And the gas you will fit from some pipe here and you will collect nitrogen gas. Okay. Okay. When argon also has a low temperature, we will get some argon also. Now the remaining gas will come here. The liquid, it is still in liquid form. The gas we have collected as nitrogen. The remaining liquid will come here, and that will be the liquid oxygen, because oxygen is again almost 90 Kelvin temperature. So we will collect most of the nitrogen, almost 78% nitrogen will be collected here, and remaining will come here, and that will be liquid oxygen. So if you see here, this is the main point, and please note the temperature is different here. Here we maintain the temperature of 77 K. If you maintain the temperature of 77 K, not more than that, because if we make it 90 K here, oxygen will also evaporate and will be collected in this tank. So but this is actually fed to a tank, and in this tank we want to collect only oxygen, right? So what we do is we make sure the temperature is 77 K here. So with that only oxygen gets evaporated here, because oxygen has the boiling point of 77, and we collect the oxygen. The remaining liquid air is passed on here, and the remaining liquid air typically has more oxygen. So only the nitrogen is collected here. Hope you understood the flow. So let me explain this once again. So here we have liquid air, and this part which you see actually is connected to a tank, and this is nitrogen. This is a liquid air. This is a liquid. Now when you maintain the temperature of 79 K here by applying some heat, maintain this temperature. The moment liquid air is heated to 77 Kelvin, in liquid air nitrogen has the boiling point of 77 K. Oxygen has 90 K. So nitrogen will convert into gas, and this nitrogen will be converted into gas, cooled down and collected here. The remaining liquid air will go here because of the flow. Because there is a flow, it will be collected here as liquid oxygen. Okay. The next is we'll try to purify copper sulfate sample. Okay. So in this case, there is a copper sulfate sample. This is a copper sulfate sample, and this is impure. We have to purify it. How can we do this? It has some impurities. We don't know the quality of impurities. So what we can do is we can actually dissolve this copper sulfate solution into water. Okay, some minimum amount of water that is required, and we can actually filter out some impurities. The big stone particles actually can filter out. Once that is done, let it dissolve. Actually dissolve the whole copper sulfate solution, and then you filter out. You get this solution, and then you can filter this out with this filter paper, so that if there is some small or big stones particle here, that you can actually filter out. Okay, and then once that is done, and then you again keep in this kind of jar, and then you allow it to cool down. If you allow it to cool down, you filter out. Once you filter out, right? So if you see now, if you filter out, and then you actually allow it to cool down. If you let it cool down, there is no heat here. If you cool down, let it cool down, then you will see that it will become, water will still be here, but this will become transparent water, and the copper sulfate crystals will get deposited here, and this process is called crystallization. Okay, so what we have done is, so we have taken some copper sulfate and we have dissolved this in water solution, and then we have filtered out some impurities. The big impurities, all these big impurities you see are filtered out here. Whatever we got here, solution, then we cooled it down. Actually not it, we will cool it down. We'll cool it down, and then we'll see that after some time the crystals of copper sulfate will come out. Okay, same process actually, whatever NaCl, the common salt we eat, that is also purified into seawater. Seawater has a lot of salt, and the same process is used to extract salt from the seawater. Let's see how we get the drinking water purified. Whatever water we get in the city actually is purified by the government, and there is a whole big process for that. So this is the impure water which we get from reservoir. I'll say this is impure water. The first thing is done is this water is put into a sedimentation tank. Here water is allowed to settle down for some time, maybe 2-3 hours. So here what happens is solid particles, they get settled down, right? The solid particles get settled down here. So we'll see here the solid particles get settled down here, and that's why it's called sedimentation tank, because sedimentation process is taking place here. Now this is relatively pure water. It goes from this tank to a tank called loading tank, right? So here we don't have sedimented impurities. Here we have water without sedimented impurities. So I have relatively pure water, but it will still have impurities in it, which are fine impurities. Now this water is now again allowed to pass through a filtration tank. So in this filtration tank we have sand, we have gravel, we have coarse stones. So this sand is on the top layer, then we have gravel, and then we have coarse stones. So what these does is, these are charged sand. Okay, so when water flows through it, these particles which are impurities, they get attracted towards this sand particles. The impurities gets attracted toward the sand particles, and thus we get more pure water. So which we see it has little impure water, it has more pure water by the time it flows through the filtration time, because the impurities get attracted by this charged sand particles. So here we get little pure water. So once I get pure water, we actually do chlorination. So chlorination kills the bacteria. So we add some chlorine. So with that you kill all the bacteria, and then you get water, and this is the pure water for drinking. Okay, please note here this sand filters, they have charged particles. These charged particles attract the impurities from the water. This is the typical process by which the impure water, typically from the lake or from any water body, a river, is purified, and you get that purified water in the home.